Hello there, my name's Jenna Tarshis, and welcome to this episode of Jenna's Math Class. This video will focus on a specific question from Unit 1 of the Advanced Functions course, Functions and their Properties and Understanding Rates of Change. The question is in Chapter 2 of the Nelson Advanced Functions textbook, page 118, question 3 of the chapter self-test. Here it is. The profit, Px, of a cosmetics company in thousands of dollars is given by P at x equals negative 5x squared plus 400x minus 2,550, where x is the amount spent on advertising in thousands of dollars. A. Calculate the average rate of change in profit on the interval x must be greater than 8 but less than 10. B. Estimate the instantaneous rate of change in profit where x equals 50. C. Discuss the significance of the signs in your answers to Part A and B. As I said before, this is a question from Unit 1, Functions and their Properties and Understanding Rates of Change. In this question, we are solving for an average rate of change, aka AROC, and instantaneous rate of change, aka IROC, of a function. And this is exactly what the final part of Unit 1 is all about. In Part A, we are solving for the AROC over a specific interval. In Part B, we are solving for the IROC at a certain point in the function. And in Part C, we are just discussing how to properly interpret your answers to Part A and B. So before we begin, we need to recall some background information. Rate of change is the ratio between the y and x variables, aka the slope. AROC is the slope of the secant, which is a straight line connecting 2 points of a function. IROC is the slope of the tangent, which is a straight line touching only 1 point of a function. That being said, let's look back at the question. The profit, P at x, of a cosmetics company in thousands of dollars is given by P at x equals negative 5x squared plus 400x minus 2,550. where x is the amount spent on advertising in thousands of dollars. This part of the question gives you a quadratic function to model the relationship between how much money the company is making versus how much money they spend on advertising. To get a better picture, let's look at what this quadratic looks like on a graph. So, the more money spent on ads, the more profit made, until $40,000 is spent on ads. This is where the profit made equals the cost of advertising, so the company isn't making any money. By spending more than this amount on ads, the profit begins to decline. A. Calculate the average rate of change in profit on the interval x must be greater than 8 but less than 10. So for this part of the question, it is asking for the AROC in profit between spending $8,000 and $10,000 on advertising. B. Estimate the instantaneous rate of change in profit when x equals 50. So in this part of the questions, it's asking for the IROC in profit when $50,000 is spent on advertising. And lastly, C. Discuss the significance of the signs in your answers to Part A and B. This part of the question is just asking about your interpretation of your AROC and IROC answers. So now that we've fully analyzed and understand the question, it's time to start solving. Our first focus will be Part A. Calculate the AROC in profit on the interval x must be greater than 8 but less than 10. These are the steps we are going to follow to solve this question. Number 1. Draw a table of values. Label the first column x and the second column p at x. Number 2. Using your calculator, find the values of p at x equal to 8 and x equal to 10. Number 3. Using the slope formula, calculate the slope of the secant using the points that you just found. Number 4. Write an interpretation of your answer by determining where the profit is changing, how the profit is changing or what's happening to the profit, and the rate that it's changing at. Remember, to find the values of p at x when x equals a certain number, all you have to do is sub in that number for x into the quadratic equation given at the beginning of the question. Here, I have subbed in the points that we just found to find the slope of the secant. Therefore, when $8,000 to $10,000 is spent on ads, the profit is increasing at an average rate of $310 per every dollar spent on ads. Our second focus will be Part B. Estimate the instantaneous rate of change in profit when x equals 50. To find the IROC, the steps are very similar to the process used to find the AROC. However, we want the rate of change at the certain point x equals 50, not over a certain interval. To do so, we must find 2 points that are very close to x at 50, such as when x equals 49.999 and 50.001. Then using these 2 points, we can find the slope of the tangent to get an approximate rate of change when x equals 50. Here's what the tangent looks like on the graph. Using your calculator, this is what you should be doing for step 2. Then sub in these points into the slope formula. Therefore, when $50,000 is spent on advertising, the profit is decreasing by $100 per dollar spent on ads. We know the profit is decreasing because our answer is a negative number. Our third focus will be Part C. Discuss the significance of the signs in your answers to Part A and B. In Part A, our answer was positive. In Part B, our answer was negative. When a linear line has a positive slope, it means that the line is increasing. So as the x values increase, the y values increase as well. That being said, since the secant of our answer in Part A had a positive slope, this means that the profit was increasing when $8,000 to $10,000 was spent on advertising. Vice versa, when a linear line has a negative slope, as the x values increase, the y values decrease. Since the tangent in Part B had a negative slope, this means the profit was decreasing. All in all, your answer could look something like this. The positive sign of our answer in Part A is significant because it tells us the profit is increasing by an average rate of $310 per dollar spent on ads. The negative sign of our answer in Part B is significant because it tells us the profit is decreasing by an approximate rate of $100 per dollar spent on ads. Would you look at that? You just completed an AROC-IROC question from the Advanced Functions course. Remember the solving skills you acquired from this question because this type of problem is solved in everyday life. For example, a marine biologist studies organisms living in water. They would have to calculate the average and instantaneous rates of change of certain marine species to monitor things such as their populations. Well, I hope you learned something about AROC, IROC, and interpreting rates of change. See you for the next episode of Math with Jenna.